Jake Martinez opened his eyes to complete darkness. The familiar hum of the ship's engines was gone. The soft blue glow of the control panels had vanished. Even the gentle whoosh of air through the ventilation system had stopped. He pushed himself up from the cold metal floor where he had been lying. His head throbbed with sharp pain. Blood had dried on his forehead where something had hit him during the attack. The taste of copper filled his mouth. "Hello?" Jake called out into the darkness. His voice echoed strangely in the empty bridge. "Captain Zek, anyone?" Silence answered him back. Jake fumbled around until his fingers found the emergency light switch. On the wall, he pressed it and held his breath. A weak red glow filled the bridge. The emergency power was still working, but barely. What he saw made his stomach drop. Every control panel had been stripped clean. Wires hung loose from empty sockets where important components used to be. The navigation computer was gone. The communications array had been torn out completely. Even the backup power cells had been removed from their housing. Jake staggered to the captain's chair where Captain Zek usually sat. The Zephyrian had been his friend for 6 months. They had shared meals together. Zek had taught him words in the Zephyrian language. Jake had shown him pictures of Earth and told him stories about human culture. But Zek was gone now. They were all gone. Jake remembered what had happened before he lost consciousness. The Zephyrian crew had surrounded him on the bridge. "Captain." Zek had looked sad but determined when he spoke. "Give us the human military codes, Jake Martinez," Zek had said in his careful English. "We know you have access to them." "I can't do that," Jake had replied. "You know I can't. Those codes protect my people." "Then we cannot protect you," Zek had said. That was when something had struck Jake from behind. When he woke up, he was alone. Jake walked slowly around the bridge, checking every system. The life support monitor showed critical failures across the board. The oxygen recycling system had been damaged on purpose. The water recovery unit was completely offline. The heating system had been disconnected. He checked his watch. The small device showed he had been unconscious for 2 hours. According to the life support readings, he had maybe 6 hours of breathable air left. After that, the carbon dioxide levels would rise until he passed out and died. Jake sat down heavily in his usual chair at the engineering station. He had been the only human on this ship, part of something called the Galactic Cooperation Initiative. 12 humans had been selected to serve on alien ships to learn about other species and share human knowledge. It was supposed to be an honor. A chance to build bridges between humanity and the wider galaxy. Jake had been excited when they chose him. His engineering skills and friendly personality made him perfect for the program. Now he understood why the other human participants had stopped sending reports back to Earth. Sarah Kim had gone quiet 3 months ago. Tony Rodriguez had missed his last 2 scheduled check-ins. Lisa Chang's ship had reported a tragic accident that claimed her life. They hadn't died in accidents. They had been murdered. Jake opened the emergency supply locker under his station. Inside he found a single bottle of water, 2 food ration bars, and a basic toolkit. Not much to work with, but it was something. He took a small sip of water and forced himself to think clearly. Panic would kill him faster than the failing life support. He needed to focus on what he could control. The ship's main computer was gone, but the emergency systems ran on a separate network. Jake crawled under the main console and found the emergency diagnostic panel. Its small screen flickered to life when he activated it. The news was bad but not hopeless. The main power core was still working at 30% capacity. The emergency batteries had 6 hours of charge left. The hull was intact with no air leaks. The artificial gravity was still functioning. Most importantly, the ship's basic frame and structure were sound. The Zephyrians had taken the valuable technology but left the ship itself. They wanted him to die slowly, not in a quick explosive decompression. Jake crawled through the ship's maintenance tunnels, checking every system he could reach. In the cargo bay, he found something the Zephyrians had missed: a box of spare parts. For the ventilation system sat forgotten behind some empty containers. The parts were designed for Zephyrian ships, but Jake had worked with this technology for months. The basic principles were similar to human systems. Air needed to be cleaned and recycled. Carbon dioxide needed to be scrubbed out. Oxygen levels needed to be maintained, that he could not fix the main life support system. Too many critical components were missing. But maybe he could build something smaller. Something that would keep him alive in one part of the ship. Jake dragged the spare parts back to the cargo bay. This area was smaller than the bridge and would be easier to keep habitable. He sealed the doors and began working, using tools from the emergency kit. Jake started connecting spare filters and air pumps. He rerouted power cables from non-essential systems. The ship's exercise equipment had a small fan for cooling. Jake removed it and modified it to move air through his makeshift filters. The work was slow and difficult. Jake had to stop frequently to rest and conserve oxygen. His head pounded from the increasing carbon dioxide levels. His hands shook as he worked, but gradually his improvised life support system began to take shape. It was ugly and inefficient, but it might work. The small air recycler hummed to life when he connected the final power cable. Jake checked the readings on his portable scanner. The carbon dioxide levels in the cargo bay were dropping. Slowly, but they were dropping. The oxygen was holding steady. He had bought himself time. Maybe a day or two if he was careful with power and stayed in the cargo bay. It was not much, but it was better than 6 hours. Jake recorded a message on his personal communicator. Even though the main communication system was destroyed, maybe someone would find the device someday. This is Jake Martinez, human liaison. Aboard the Zephyrian vessel Void Walker, he said into the small recorder. The crew has abandoned me in the Kepler system after I refused to give them classified human military codes. The Galactic Cooperation Initiative is a trap. The aliens are studying us by putting us in deadly situations. He paused, thinking about what else to say. I don't know if anyone will hear this, but if you do, tell Earth that the other humans in the program are probably dead. Tell them the aliens are afraid of something about us. They want to understand how we survive impossible situations. Jake looked around his small, improvised shelter. The recycled air tasted stale but breathable. The emergency lights cast strange shadows on the walls. I'm going to try to stay alive as long as possible, he continued recording. Maybe someone will come looking, maybe they won't. But I'm not going to make it easy for the carbon dioxide to kill me. That's not how humans work. He turned off the recorder and settled down to wait. Outside the cargo bay, the rest of the ship grew cold and dark. But in his small corner of the vessel, Jake Martinez prepared to prove exactly what the aliens wanted to learn about human stubbornness. The silence of space pressed against the hull, but Jake was no longer listening to it. He was too busy planning how to survive another day. Captain Lisa Torres rubbed her tired eyes as she stared at the navigation display. The Northern Star had been flying for 16 hours straight, carrying medical supplies to Colony 7. Her crew was exhausted, but the colonists needed these medicines before their outbreak got worse. Captain, I'm picking up something strange on the long-range scanner, said Danny Walsh from the communications station. He was young and eager, always the first to notice unusual signals. What kind of strange? Lisa asked, walking over to look at his screen. It's a distress signal, but it's very weak. Almost dead, and it's coming from way off our current route. Danny adjusted his headset and frowned. The signal is breaking. Up badly, but I think it's human. Lisa felt her heart skip a beat. Human, are you sure? Pretty sure. The signal format matches our emergency protocols. but it's coming from empty space in the Kepler system. There shouldn't be any human ships out there. Ryan Clark, her first officer, looked up from his supply reports. Captain, if we investigate that signal, it will add 2 days to our journey. Colony 7 is counting on us. People are dying from that plague. Lisa stared at the star chart on the main screen. The distress signal location was far from any established shipping lanes. If a human ship was out there, they were in serious trouble. But Ryan was right about Colony 7. Those colonists needed the medical supplies within the next few days, or more people would die. How old is the signal? She asked Danny. Based on the transmission strength and decay, I'd say it was sent about 3 days ago. Maybe 3 days. If someone had been sending a distress signal for 3 days, they were probably already dead. Space was not forgiving to broken ships. But the word probably stuck in Lisa's mind. She had lost her brother to the void 5 years ago. His ship had suffered engine failure between Mars and Jupiter. By the time rescue crews found him, it was too late. The thought of leaving someone else to die alone in space made her stomach turn. Danny, can you clean up that signal at all? I want to know exactly what we're dealing with. Danny worked at his console for several minutes, adjusting filters and amplifiers. I can make out a few words, Captain. It's definitely a human voice, male. He's saying something about being abandoned by aliens and asking for help. Aliens? Ryan stepped closer to the communication station. That doesn't make sense. We don't have any joint operations with alien species out here. Lisa thought about the Galactic Cooperation Initiative she had heard about in fleet briefings. A dozen humans had been selected to serve on alien ships as cultural ambassadors. But those missions were supposed to be in safe, well-traveled areas of space. Play what you can make out, she ordered. Danny activated the speakers. A crackling, distorted voice filled the bridge. This is Jake Martinez, human liaison aboard Zephyrian vessel. Crew has abandoned me, refused to give them ... military codes. Cooperation Initiative is a trap. The signal faded into static. Danny tried to enhance it more, but the rest was too broken to understand. Jake Martinez, Lisa repeated the name. I've heard that name before. Wasn't he one of the people selected for the alien exchange program? I think so, Ryan said. But if he's on an alien ship, why is he sending a human distress signal? Lisa looked at the star chart again. The signal was coming from completely empty space, far from any known alien territories. If Jake Martinez was really out there, something had gone very wrong with the exchange program. Captain, said Sue Phillips from the navigation station, I've been thinking about this. If we change course now, we can reach the signal location in about 40 hours. But we'll be cutting it close for Colony 7. The medical supplies will arrive just 1 day before their deadline. What if we run into trouble? Ryan asked. What if there are hostile aliens at that location? We could lose the Northern Star and all the medical supplies. Lisa knew Ryan was being practical. The Northern Star was a cargo ship with minimal weapons and shields. They were built for carrying supplies, not fighting battles. If they ran into hostile aliens, they would be in serious trouble. But the thought of Jake Martinez dying alone in space haunted her. She had joined the merchant fleet to help people, not to abandon them when they needed rescue. Amy, what's our engine status? She called to the chief engineer. Amy Rodriguez looked up from her engineering console. Engines are running fine, Captain. We could push them harder if we need to make up time. It would be rough on the power systems, but doable. Danny, keep monitoring that signal. Let me know if you pick up anything else. Lisa walked to her captain's chair and sat down heavily. 43 crew members were depending on her to make the right choice. The colonists on Colony 7 were depending on her too. But somewhere in the darkness of space, Jake Martinez might be counting his last hours of air. "Captain," Danny said suddenly, "I'm getting more of the signal. It's clearer. Now, put it on speakers." Jake's voice came through the static, stronger this time. "I don't know if anyone will hear this, but if you do, tell Earth that the other humans in the program are probably dead. Tell them the aliens are afraid of something about us. They want to understand how we survive impossible situations." The bridge fell silent. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. Other humans were dead? The alien exchange program was some kind of experiment? "There's more," Danny said, adjusting his controls. "I'm going to try to stay alive as long as possible. Maybe someone will come looking. Maybe they won't. But I'm not going to make it easy for the carbon dioxide to kill me. That's not how humans work." The signal faded again, leaving only the hum of the ship's engines. "Captain," Ryan said quietly, "if what he's saying is true, this could be bigger than just one rescue mission. This could be some kind of alien conspiracy against humanity." Lisa stood up and walked to the main view screen. Stars stretched endlessly, in all directions. Somewhere out there, Jake Martinez was fighting for his life. And if his message was accurate, he had information that could save other human lives. "Sue, plot a course for the signal location, maximum safe speed." "Captain, are you sure about this?" Ryan asked. "We're risking a lot on a signal that might be days old." "Ryan, if that was your brother out there, what would you want me to do?" Ryan was quiet for a moment. "I'd want you to try to save him. Then that's what we're doing. Amy, I want you to start working on ways to boost our engine output. We're going to save Jake Martinez and still get those medical supplies to Colony 7 on time." "Yes, Captain," Amy said with determination in her voice. "Danny, keep monitoring all frequencies. If there are alien ships in that area, I want to know about them before we get there." Lisa looked around at her crew. They were tired and worried, but she could see the resolve in their faces. This was why she had chosen to serve with these people. When someone needed help, they didn't walk away. "All right, people. We have a rescue mission. Let's bring Jake Martinez home." The Northern Star adjusted course, its engines burning brighter as they headed toward the unknown. Behind them, Colony 7 would have to wait a little longer for their medical supplies. But ahead of them, a human being was fighting to survive against impossible odds, and Lisa Torres was not about to let him fight alone. Amy Rodriguez checked her equipment one more time before stepping into the airlock. The Evia suit felt heavy on her shoulders, but she had done hundreds of spacewalks in her 15 years as a ship's engineer. This one felt different, though. More dangerous. "Remember, we don't know what we're walking into," Captain Torres said through the comm system. "If anything looks wrong, you get back to the ship immediately." "Understood, Captain," Amy replied. She looked at the two security officers who would accompany her. Pete Johnson carried a plasma cutter for opening sealed doors. Carlos Martinez had a medical kit and emergency oxygen supplies. Through the airlock window, Amy could see the alien ship floating in space. The Zephyrian vessel was larger than the Northern Star, with strange curved sections that looked like flowing water frozen in metal. But something was wrong with it. No lights blinked on its hull. No energy readings showed on their scanners. "The ship looks completely dead," Pete said, adjusting his helmet. "Are we sure there's someone alive in there?" "The distress signal is still transmitting." Danny's voice crackled through their headsets. "It's weak, but it's definitely coming from inside that ship." Amy activated the airlock cycle. The heavy door slid open, revealing the star-filled darkness of space. She pushed off gently and drifted toward the alien vessel, her magnetic boots ready to clamp onto its hull. The ship's surface was covered in strange symbols and patterns. Amy had never seen Zephyrian writing before, but something about the designs made her uncomfortable. They looked angry somehow, like warning signs written in an alien language. I'm reading minimal power signatures from the ship, Carlos reported, scanning with his handheld detector. Something is still running in there, but barely. Amy found what looked like an airlock on the side of the ship. The mechanism was different from human designs, but the basic function was the same. She attached a portable power unit and began the sequence to open the outer door. "Be careful," Captain Torres warned through the comm. "We still don't know why." The crew abandoned this ship. The alien airlock opened with a soft hiss. Amy floated inside, followed by Pete and Carlos. The inner door opened automatically, and they found themselves in a narrow corridor lit by dim red emergency lights. "Atmosphere is breathable," Carlos said, checking his scanner. "Oxygen levels are low but safe. Temperature is cold but not dangerous." Amy removed her helmet and immediately smelled something wrong. The air was stale and had a metallic taste. But underneath that, she detected something else. "The smell of human sweat and fear, Jake Martinez," she called out loudly. "This is Amy Rodriguez from the human ship Northern Star. Can you hear me?" A weak voice answered from somewhere deeper in the ship. "Here. I'm in the cargo bay." Amy followed the voice through the alien corridors. The ship's design was confusing, with curved passages that seemed to go in circles. Emergency lights flickered randomly, casting strange shadows on the walls. "The main power is almost gone," Pete observed, checking the ship's systems as they walked. "This vessel should be completely dead by now." They found Jake Martinez in the cargo bay, surrounded by a maze of jury-rigged equipment and cables. He was sitting on the floor next to a humming device that looked like it had been built from spare parts and determination. Amy's first thought was that Jake looked terrible. His face was pale and thin. His clothes were dirty and torn. Dark circles under his eyes showed he hadn't slept properly in days. But he was alive, and when he saw them, he smiled. "I can't believe you're real," Jake said, his voice hoarse. "I thought I was starting to hallucinate." Carlos immediately began checking Jake's vital signs, while Amy examined his improvised life support system. What she saw impressed her. Jake had created a working air recycler using nothing but spare parts and basic tools. The design was inefficient and ugly, but it had kept him alive. "How long have you been running on this setup?" Amy asked. 4 days, Jake replied. "Maybe 5. Time gets fuzzy when you're trying not to die." Pete was examining the rest of the cargo bay. "This whole area has been sealed off from the rest of the ship. You turned it into a survival shelter. The Zephyrians took all the important systems when they left," Jake explained. "But they missed these spare parts. I used to work on environmental systems back on Earth. The principles are the same, even with alien technology." Amy helped Jake to his feet. He was weak but could walk. "What happened here? Why did the aliens abandon you?" Jake's expression grew dark. "They wanted human military codes, information about our defense systems and fleet positions. When I refused to give them what they wanted, they decided to leave me here to die." "But why?" Carlos asked, supporting Jake as they walked toward the exit. "What do they gain from killing you?" "They're studying us," Jake said. "The whole Galactic Cooperation Initiative is a lie. They put humans in impossible situations. Watch how we react. They want to understand what makes us different from other species." Amy felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold air. "Different how?" "Other species give up when things look hopeless," Jake explained as they moved through the corridors. "Humans don't. We keep fighting even when we should be dead. The aliens are afraid of that, but they also want to understand it." They reached the airlock where Amy had entered the ship. As they prepared to leave, Jake turned back for one last look at the cargo bay where he had survived. "I recorded everything," he said. "Names, dates, conversation recordings. The aliens talked freely around me because they thought I would die here. I know about their plans." "What plans?" Pete asked. They're not just studying individual humans, Jake said grimly. They're mapping our colonies, our trade routes, our military bases. This isn't just scientific curiosity. This is preparation. For something bigger. Amy guided Jake into the Northern Star's airlock. As soon as they were safely aboard, Dr. Kevin Barnes began treating Jake in the medical bay. The doctor was amazed that Jake had survived so long on his makeshift life support system. Your blood oxygen levels are low, and you're dehydrated, Dr. Barnes explained as he attached monitoring equipment. But considering what you've been through, you're in remarkably good condition. How did you stay mentally focused for so long? Jake managed a weak smile. I kept thinking about home, about Earth, about all the people who would die if the aliens got the information they wanted from me. Giving up wasn't an option. Captain Torres entered the medical bay with a serious expression. Jake, I need to know everything you can tell us about this alien conspiracy. If what you're saying is true, we need to warn Earth immediately. It's worse than you think, Jake said, sitting up despite Dr. Barnes's protests. I wasn't the first human they tried this with. They told me about the others. Sarah Kim, Tony Rodriguez, Lisa Chang, all the humans in the exchange program. They're all dead. All of them? Torres asked. The aliens have been perfecting their methods, Jake continued. They put each human in a different type of deadly situation and study how we respond. They're building a database of human survival behaviors. Amy sat down next to Jake's medical bed. But you survived. You beat their test. That's what scares them, Jake said. I wasn't supposed to last more than a few hours. The fact that I created a working life support system from garbage proves their worst fears about humans. Which is what? Torres asked. Jake looked at each of them in turn. That we don't know how to quit. That we'll find a way to survive and fight back no matter what they do to us. They wanted to study human determination, but they're starting to realize that was a mistake. Why a mistake? Amy asked. Because now they know we're dangerous, Jake said. And they're going to try to do something about it before we become too strong to stop. The medical bay fell quiet except for the hum of Dr. Barnes's equipment. Amy realized that rescuing Jake was just the beginning. They had stumbled into something much larger and more dangerous than a simple rescue mission. Outside the medical bay, the Northern Star continued its journey through space, carrying not just Jake Martinez, but the knowledge that humanity's place in the galaxy was far more precarious than anyone had imagined. Jake Martinez sat in the Northern Star's briefing room, feeling stronger after 2 days of rest and proper food. His hands no longer shook, and the color had returned to his face. But the information he carried weighed heavily on his mind. Captain Torres sat across from him with a datapad full of notes. The encrypted message to Fleet Command had been sent, but they were still 3 days away from the nearest human outpost. Jake had been sharing everything he remembered about his time with the Zephyrians. Tell me more about their interest in human psychology, Torres said. What exactly were they trying to learn? Jake rubbed his forehead, trying to organize his thoughts. They kept asking me questions about human behavior under stress. How we react when we're trapped. Why we don't surrender when the situation looks hopeless. They seemed genuinely confused by it. Confused how? Captain Zek told me that most species in the galaxy follow predictable patterns, Jake explained. When faced with certain death, they accept it peacefully. They use their final hours to say goodbye or prepare for whatever comes after. But humans are different. Torres leaned forward. Different in what way? We get angry, Jake said simply. We refuse to accept death quietly. We fight and scratch and claw for every extra minute of life. Even when fighting is pointless, we still fight. The aliens find this behavior both fascinating and terrifying. Danny Walsh looked up from his computer station. Captain, I've been analyzing the data we recovered from the alien ship. Jake is right about the mapping project. The Zephyrians have detailed charts of every human colony, military base, and shipping route within 50 light-years of Earth. Show me. Torres ordered. Danny activated the main display screen. A three-dimensional map appeared, showing human space in shocking detail. Red markers indicated military installations. Blue markers showed civilian colonies. Green lines traced major shipping routes. This is more accurate than some of our own military maps, Torres said grimly. How did they get this information? From the humans in the exchange program, Jake answered. Each of us had access to different types of information. Sarah Kim was a navigation specialist. Tony Rodriguez was a communications expert. Lisa Chung worked in logistics. Together, we gave them everything they needed to map our entire territory. Sue Phillips, the navigator, was studying the display with a worried expression. Captain, look at these movement patterns marked in yellow. Those aren't human ships. Jake stood up and pointed to the yellow markers. Those are Zephyrian scout ships. They've been moving through human space for months, gathering additional intelligence. We thought they were just curious explorers, but they were actually conducting military reconnaissance. Military reconnaissance for what? Torres asked. I don't know for sure, Jake admitted. But I overheard conversations between Captain Zek and his officers. They kept talking about something called the Great Pacification. They mentioned timeline concerns and resource allocation for a major operation. Amy Rodriguez entered the briefing room carrying a concerned expression. Captain, we have a problem. I've been monitoring our long-range sensors, and I'm detecting multiple ships moving to intercept us. Human ships? Torres asked hopefully. No, Captain. The energy signatures matched Zephyrian vessels. 3 of them, moving fast. They'll reach us in about 18 hours. Jake felt his stomach drop. They know I survived. They're coming to finish what they started and make sure the information I have never reaches Earth. Torres stood up and began pacing. How many people do they have on those ships? Each Zephyrian warship carries about 40 crew members, Jake said. They're faster than us and better armed. The Northern Star isn't built for combat, so we run, Torres said. We change course and try to outrun them. Sue Phillips shook her head. Captain, I've run the calculations. Even if we push our engines beyond safe limits, they'll catch us before we reach human space. Those ships are designed for speed and long-range operations. The briefing room fell silent as everyone considered their options. Jake could see the worry on their faces. These people had risked their lives to save him, and now they were all in danger because of the information he carried. There might be another option, Jake said slowly. But it's dangerous and probably crazy. I'm listening, Torres said. Jake walked over to the display showing the alien ship locations. The Zephyrians are expecting us to run. They know the Northern Star is a cargo vessel with minimal weapons. They're planning to disable our engines and board us easily. And, Amy prompted, what if we don't run? What if we fight back in a way they don't expect? Ryan Clark, the first officer, looked skeptical. Jake, we have maybe 2 small defensive lasers against 3 warships. That's not a fight, that's suicide. Not if we use their own technology against them, Jake said. I spent 6 months learning how Zephyrian systems work. I know their weaknesses. Jake activated a section of the display showing technical schematics. Zephyrian ships rely on centralized power distribution. If you can overload their main power coupling, their weapons and shields go offline for several minutes while the backup systems activate. How do we overload their power coupling from out here? Torres asked. Jake smiled for the first time since his rescue. We don't do it from here. We do it from the ship they're planning to capture. While they're focused on disabling our engines, we modify our systems to create a feedback pulse through their boarding connections. Amy studied the technical data Jake was displaying. That's actually possible. Dangerous as hell, but possible. We'd need to modify our power systems to generate the right kind of energy surge. And we'd need perfect timing, Sue added. If we trigger the pulse too early or too late, it won't work. Torres looked around the room at her crew. What are the chances this plan will work? Honestly, Jake said, maybe 30%. But if we just try to run, our chances are 0. The Zephyrians are faster and better equipped. Our only advantage is that they don't expect us to fight back. What about the other ships? Danny asked. Even if we disable one, there are still 2 more. That's where human unpredictability comes in, Jake said. Zephyrians are logical and methodical. When one of their ships suddenly goes offline, they'll stop to figure out what went wrong. That gives us time to implement Phase 2 of the plan. Which is? Torres asked. Jake's expression grew serious. We turned this cargo ship into something they've never seen before. Using the alien technology I learned about and the engineering skills Amy has, we create hybrid systems that don't follow any known rules of space combat. Amy was already thinking about the possibilities. We could reroute the cargo handling systems to boost our engine output. Use the loading bay magnetic fields to create makeshift shields. Maybe even turn some of our cargo containers into improvised weapons. It sounds crazy enough that it might work, Torres said. But Jake, you realize that if we fight these ships and win, we'll be starting a war between humanity and the Zephyrian Empire. Jake looked at the star map still displayed on the screen, showing all the human colonies and bases that the aliens had been secretly mapping. Captain, I think that war was already planned. We're just refusing to let them start it on their terms. Torres walked to the viewing port and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 3 alien warships were racing toward them with orders to kill everyone aboard the Northern Star. The smart thing to do would be to surrender and hope for mercy. But Jake was right about one thing. Humans didn't surrender. Quietly, all right, Torres said, turning back to face her crew. We fight. Amy, start working with Jake on those system modifications. Sue, plot a course that will give us the best tactical position when they arrive. Danny, start recording everything. If we don't make it out of this, at least Earth will know what happened. Jake felt a familiar determination settle over him. It was the same feeling that had kept him alive on the alien ship. The feeling that humans got when they were pushed too far and decided to push back. Captain, he said, the Zephyrians wanted to study human survival instincts. They're about to get a very thorough education. The 3 Zephyrian warships appeared on the Northern Star's sensors, like hungry predators closing in on wounded prey. Captain Torres watched the display screen as the alien vessels moved into attack formation. Their sleek hulls gleamed in the starlight, bristling with weapons that could tear her cargo ship apart in minutes. They're hailing us, Danny reported from his communication station. Standard surrender demand. They want us to cut power and prepare to be boarded. Ignore them, Torres ordered. Amy, are the modifications ready? Amy Rodriguez wiped sweat from her forehead as she finished the last connection in the jury-rigged system she and Jake had built. As ready as they can be, Captain. This is either going to work brilliantly or blow us all to pieces. Jake Martinez stood at a makeshift control station they had assembled from spare parts and alien technology. His hands moved quickly over controls that shouldn't exist, connecting systems that were never meant to work together. The feedback pulse is charged and ready. We'll only get one shot at this. Incoming missiles, Sue Phillips called from the navigation station. They're targeting our engines, just like Jake predicted. Perfect, Torres said grimly. Let them think they have us. Wait for my signal. The Zephyrian missiles struck the Northern Star's engine section, causing explosions that shook the entire ship. Emergency lights flickered as power systems strained under the damage. To the alien ships, it looked like a successful attack that had crippled their target. Lead ship is moving in for boarding, Pete Johnson reported from the tactical station. They're extending docking clamps. Torres felt the ship shake as the alien vessel attached itself to their hull. Through the hull sensors, she could hear the sound of cutting tools as the Zephyrians began opening an entrance into the Northern Star. They're inside our outer hull, Carlos Martinez reported. Boarding will begin in 30 seconds. Jake, are you ready? Torres asked. Jake's fingers hovered over the activation controls. Ready, Captain. This is going to hurt them a lot more than it hurts us. Do it. Jake triggered the feedback pulse. Energy that had been carefully stored and modified flowed through the docking connection into the Zephyrian ship. The pulse was designed to overload their power coupling, exactly as Jake had described. The effect was immediate and devastating. The alien warship's lights went out completely. Its weapons powered down. Its engines stopped firing. The great vessel went dark and silent, drifting helplessly in space. It worked, Amy shouted. Their main power is completely offline. The other two Zephyrian ships stopped their approach, clearly confused by what had happened to their companion. Jake had been right about their logical nature. They needed to understand the threat before proceeding. Phase 2, Torres ordered. Amy, give me everything we've got. Amy activated the hybrid systems they had built during the past 18 hours. The Northern Star's cargo handling equipment had been converted into makeshift thrusters that boosted their speed beyond anything the aliens expected. Magnetic fields from the loading bays created energy shields that deflected incoming laser fire. Most surprising of all, the cargo containers themselves had been turned into weapons. Using the ship's loading systems, they fired metal containers at high speed toward the confused alien vessels. They don't know how to respond, Sue observed, watching the alien ships on her scanner. They've never seen anything like this before. The Zephyrian ships tried to adapt to the Northern Star's unusual tactics, but their logical approach was too slow. Jake and Amy had created systems that operated outside normal space combat rules. The aliens couldn't predict what would happen next because the humans were making it up as they went along. Second ship is taking damage, Pete reported. Those cargo containers are hitting harder than they expected. Jake was grinning as he worked the controls. Zephyrian ships are built for fighting other logical species. They don't know how to handle weapons that shouldn't exist. The battle continued for 20 minutes, with the Northern Star using every trick Jake and Amy could think of. They rerouted life support systems to boost their shields. They used the ship's gravity generator to throw the aliens off course. They even fired their emergency supplies at the enemy ships, turning food containers and spare parts into improvised ammunition. Third ship is retreating, Danny announced. They're pulling back to a safe distance. And the second ship? Torres asked. Dead in space, Sue replied. We've knocked out their main engines and most of their weapons. They're not going anywhere. Torres looked at the tactical display with amazement. Her cargo ship, which had never been designed for combat, had just defeated 2 alien warships and forced a third to retreat. It seemed impossible, but the evidence was right there on her screen. Captain, Danny said, the retreating ship is transmitting something. It's not directed at us. They're sending a message to other Zephyrian forces. What are they saying? Torres asked. Jake listened to the alien transmission through his modified communicator. His expression grew serious as he translated. They're reporting a complete tactical failure. They're calling us unpredictable and dangerous. They're requesting immediate reinforcements and new strategies for dealing with human vessels. They're scared, Amy said with satisfaction. They came here expecting an easy target, and we showed them what humans do when we're pushed too far. Torres walked over to Jake's control station. Jake, you've been studying these aliens for months. What do you think they'll do next? Jake considered the question carefully. In the short term, they'll avoid human ships and report back to their command structure. But in the long term, this changes everything. We've proven that humans are more dangerous than they thought. Is that good or bad for us? Both, Jake said honestly. The good news is that they'll be more cautious about attacking human vessels. The bad news is that they'll probably accelerate whatever they were planning to do about the human presence in space. Torres turned to address her entire crew. All right, people. We've sent a message today, but this is just the beginning. Danny, send a priority transmission to Fleet Command. Tell them everything we've learned about the alien conspiracy and what just happened here. Already on it, Captain, Danny replied. Sue, plot a course for the nearest military base. We need to get Jake's intelligence to people who can act on it. Course laid in, Sue confirmed. Torres looked at Jake Martinez, the man they had risked everything to save. Jake, what you've told us about the alien experiments and their mapping project could save countless human lives. Your survival and the information you carried might have just prevented a war. Jake shook his head. I don't think we prevented a war, Captain. I think we just made sure it will be fought on our terms instead of theirs. The Northern Star turned away from the disabled alien ships and began its journey toward human space. Behind them, the Zephyrian vessels drifted helplessly, their crews undoubtedly trying to understand what had just happened. In the ship's medical bay, Dr. Barnes was treating the minor injuries the crew had suffered during the battle. You know, he said to Jake as he bandaged a cut on the engineer's hand, the aliens wanted to study human survival instincts. I think today they got more education than they bargained for. Jake smiled as he looked out the medical bay window. At the stars, they wanted to understand what makes humans different from other species. They put me in an impossible situation to see how I would react. Then they sent 3 warships to kill all of us. And, Dr. Barnes prompted. And we showed them that humans don't just survive impossible situations, Jake said. We turn them around and make them impossible for the other guy. The Northern Star continued its journey through space, carrying not just Jake Martinez and his vital intelligence, but proof of something the aliens were only beginning to understand. Humans were not just stubborn survivors. They were innovators who could turn any situation to their advantage. When cornered, humans didn't just fight back. They fought back in ways that no one expected, using weapons that shouldn't work in tactics. That defied logic. The aliens had wanted to study human determination, but they had learned something else entirely. They had learned why picking a fight with humanity was a very bad idea.